Hi, my name is Katlyn. I'm going to be doing my topic on the Dakota Access Pipeline. The Dakota Access Pipeline is unethical because it runs through Native American reserves and causes environmental conflicts. There are many more alternatives that can possibly take over the fossil fuels. The Dakota Access Pipeline will carry approximately 470 barrels of oil across 1,172 miles from North Dakota wells through South Dakota and Iowa, ending in shipping port in Illinois. The issue with the proposition route is it runs through Lake Ojai and Standing Rock Sioux Indian reserves. The size of the pipeline puts the reservation only water supply at risk of oil spills, which has occurred already, and contaminating sacred sites. The Standing Rock Sioux tribe is a Native American tribe who signed a treaty with the United States government, the 1851 and 1868 Treaty of Laramie, which makes peace among whites and Sioux. This left the tribe's reservation within the Black Hills in Wyoming with access to Missouri River, which turns into Lake Ojai. During the permitting process of the pipeline, the federal government did not involve the Standing Rock Sioux tribe, making this violation of the treaty and federal law. Not only did the Dakota pipeline cause environmental conflicts and violations of sacred grounds, there was a Senate Bill 189 that was passed to restrict the protesters' First and Fourth Amendment. After the events that occurred during the construction of the Dakota pipeline, the government should consider alternative projects such as nuclear power plants and solar energy and wind energy. My first main topic is the North Dakota pipeline raised many concerns about the environmental impacts, and it also caused during and after the construction. The Dakota pipeline will worsen climate change due to the pumping of oil. And it says that it releases 101.4 million metric tons of carbon dioxide each year. This is equivalent to the emissions of 29.5 coal plants or 21.4 million cars per year. Not only did the Dakota pipeline have environmental impacts, it also causes water contamination if there's an oil spill, which already has occurred multiple times. The construction of the pipeline was fast-tracked using a process called Nationwide Permit Number 12, exempting from the environmental reviews required by the Clean Water Act, adding further concerns about the safety of the pipeline. The Pipeline and Hazardous Materials Safety Administration has reported that 3,300 incidents of leaks and ruptures at oil and gas pipes since 2010. There has been reported leaks from the Dakota pipeline. The main one was April 23rd, 2017 in Illinois, where 168 gallons were spilled. The new technology called leak detection system that is supposed to detect oil spill is not very reliable. According to Doug Crow-Ghost, a water reserve director for the Standing Tribe, stated that the leak detection system used by energy transferred partner can detect leaks that are less than 2% of the full pipeline flow rate. A leak nearly 12,000 barrels per day could go undetected. So 1 U.S. barrel is equivalent to 42 U.S. fluid gallons, and 1 quart of oil can contaminate up to a quarter million gallons of water or cause a oil slink almost 2 acres in size. There are many people who were affected by Dakota pipeline because it was destruction of sacred ground. The Standing Rock Sioux tribe were the main protesters during the construction of the Dakota pipeline, mainly because there was a treaty, the 1968 Treaty of Laramie, what was to bring peace between the whites and Sioux. But because of this treaty going against it, the federal government did not include the tribe in the permitting process, which was required by federal law. The reason why the peaceful protest took a turn into violence was because of the invasion of the sacred ground. The start of the violent protest started on September 3rd, 2016, when the pipeline security workers used attack dogs, which were not permitted during the construction, and pepper spray on the protesters. And they also, because they went through sacred land, and the executive director of India's Environmental Network, Dallas Goltu, stated, stated, the Dakota Access literally plowed through a burial site at significant ceremonial sites that was just identified by the landowner and tribal experts a few days before. This was off the reserve. The tribe filed the discovery with federal judge that decided whether to grant the induction against the Dakota Access. However, in order for the construction to be halted, the ND State Historical Preserve Office had to come and officially survey the site because it was in their jurisdiction. So what did the Dakota Access do? They plowed through the land before the State Historical Preserve Office come and did their survey. This started the violent riot. The standing tribal chairman Dave Archibald II stated these grounds were resting places for our ancestors. The ancient jars and stone prayer rings cannot be replaced. Due to the violent protest, there was a Senate bill passed to restrict the protests against the pipeline. The SB 189 allows the state to sue any individual or organization for the riot boosting of encouraging a protest where acts of violence occur. Many individuals can now be held criminally or civilly liable, even if they did not personally participate in any riot, but directs, advertises, encourages, or blasts this person participating in the riot. This is a violation of the First and 14th Amendment rights of our freedom of speech and due process under law. In conclusion, the Dakota pipeline is unethical because of the environmental impacts and the destruction of sacred ground. Native Americans have sacred lands for their burials and ceremonial practices, which is part of their beliefs, and that is protected by the First Amendment. There are many alternatives that could take place of fossil fuels, so why is pipelines necessary?
Okay.
Start the question.
So,
Can I stop it?
No.
Sorry.
So you talked about like alternatives to fossil fuel. So like what alternatives would be like closer, like price range wise to fossil fuel?
Price range? Well, building a pipeline, especially this pipeline, because there's a lot of destruction of equipment, raised a lot of more and more prices. It ended up being in like the millions, billions. So with solar energy, windmills, and the nuclear energy power plants, they are more beneficial not only to the environment but to more people as well, because it can also provide more job opportunities other than pipelines.
Okay. And you said like the pipelines were underneath Lake Oahe. And you said that it interfered with the Native American tribe. I don't know how to question that. Okay.
Well, it interfered with their water supply. So if there was a spill, it would contaminate all their clean
the water supply. Yeah. Okay. And then you said like, so the system, like the detection system was flawed, but isn't like all human creation flawed as well?
Yeah, it is. So why build a pipeline if it only can detect 2% or more? Everything under 2%, that's enough to contaminate that whole water supply for these Native Americans if it leaks in their current spot.
Okay. And also like since you like gave alternatives to fossil fuel, like would it be more difficult for humans to like acquire like solar energy like to power their cars and like wind energy?
Yes, that is true. But they're already building energy-based like cars. Like there's chargeable cars now. They're not really relying so much on the oil anymore. They're trying to build more cars that are more energy preserved. You see those on the stickers on the back of the cars, and so I feel like the environment's changing. So why we keep building all these pipelines when we could just do alternatives for them that are more beneficial?
Yeah. Okay. And so shoot, I just lost my question. But so the batteries that they use in like solar energy as well, isn't that also considered as fossil fuel?
It got me there, but it can be, but it's not as, how can I say, it's not as it's not producing that much CO2 as the pipeline is. So it's kind of less impact on the environment than it is for the pipeline.
Did you find any studies about this?
I did one of them. It was, I don't have a name for it, but I do have it, yes. It was,
Okay.
hey, switch.
Alright.
And back up.
Alright. So, the North Dakota pipelines, my name's Alex Timwell, by the way, and as Kat explained, it's a pipeline that goes underneath the Lake Ojai, and which is also like the water supply of the Native American tribe. And this pipeline transports crude oil from domestic wells to American consumers. And also, it was started in 2016, and it's already in production today. And because of recent controversial arguments dealing with the pipeline, the pipeline has been devalued instead of celebrating its success. And this pipeline has affected many Americans, especially Native Americans who lived in the area where the pipelines were built. However, these pipelines were not only approved because of its potential to revenue, but opportunity that it gives to Americans in the industry. The cost of these pipelines were funded by citizen tax money, and therefore we technically are supporting this pipeline by paying taxes. But many think that this pipeline crosses the Standing Rock land, but actually it doesn't. It crosses their water supply. This pipeline is underground, which means it's not actually visible unless you dig it up, which also it follows the same route of another pipeline that was actually built 35 years ago. And however, this pipeline is much more modern and deep, and actually 115 feet deeper, and allows more safety to the water and the people above. So, as I said, the North Dakota pipelines offers beneficial resources to the economy and environment where the country lacks the most. So the pipeline offered more jobs to boost the economic status of North Dakota. According to Sarah, the pipelines were to offer 8,000 to 12,000 construction jobs back in 2016. And also this included 40 permanent operating jobs. According to the Wall Street Journal, the growth in oil production has North Dakota's unemployment rate at 2.3% back in November of 2017. Also, North Dakota's state revenue went up to $43.5 million in just the first 5 months of operation. This is according to Wall Street Journal also. And according to DAPL pipelinefacts.com, it's by estimate, the pipeline will produce a $55 million annual property tax revenue, and this revenue will be contributed to public services within North Dakota, South Dakota, Iowa, and Illinois. Also, the pipeline transports large amounts of crude oil directly to American consumers. According to procon.org, an estimate of 470,000 to 570,000 barrels of crude oil will be transported every day. And also, according to them, the crude oil will be direct to the consumer instead of other leading oil countries such as like Russia or like the Middle East. This source of crude oil allows America to be less dependent with not only oil but also jobs, materials, and other sources needed for these pipelines. Energy Transfer Partners is a company that builds these pipelines and uses American materials and American workers. Pipelines help reduce amount of pollution and cost to transport by rail and trucks. The pipeline can remove about 500 to 740 rail cars and 250 plus trucks in order to transport crude oil every single day. This is according to DAPL Pipeline Facts again. The cost to transport crude oil pipelines is much less than by rail and trucks. Rail and trucks require fuel, maintenance,
more safety precautions, less qualified employees, and more labor done by humans. From external costs of transporting petroleum products, evidence from shipments of crude oil from North Dakota by pipelines and rail, a peer-reviewed journal, they quoted Fratelli et al. Say that railroad transport reportedly cost is in the neighborhood of $10 to $15 per barrel compared with $5 per barrel for a pipeline. This means that the transportation through railroad can cost up to 3 times more than through a pipeline system. The North Dakota pipelines do not interfere with neighboring lands, and the design ensures safety of local communities. The pipelines do not cross the standing rock zone land. According to DAPL Pipeline Facts.com, these pipelines follow the same route of non-DAPL pipelines, which also do not cross the standing rock zone land. Also, the DAPL pipelines are 115 feet deep and much deeper than the already existing pipelines that have done well for 35 years. Since these pipelines are 115 deep under Lake Ojai, and multiple layers of sand and clay are above, which is additional protection to the environment above it. 99.98% of where the pipelines are located is privately owned property, which means that 0.02% is federal property. Federal property can include Native American land, but is not insured because that 0.02% can be confidential. The pipelines were created in the 21st century by leading tech and industrial companies. According to the Oil Spill Intelligence Report, in one of the recent spills, no water has been contaminated. Also, they expressed that officials have said that no wildlife has been hurt or injured. According to that same report, Lynn Ham said that Tesoro, which is one of the companies that helped build the pipelines, did absolutely everything that the rules required, and they were voluntarily implementing more monitoring and safety than the rules required. The company Energy Transfer Plants, which is also another big contributor to the pipelines, installed pipe that is 50% thicker than required by law in sensitive places and used X-ray and ultrasonic technology to field test every single weld, according to McCown from Forbes.com. Pipelines are safer according to rails compared to rails or other forms of transportation for crude oil. Pipelines are able to be monitored 24/7, 365 days, compared to other forms of transportation. According to a Fraser Institute study from 2003-2013, rail has experienced 0.227 occurrences or accidents per million barrel compared to pipelines, which experience 0.049 occurrences or accidents per million barrel. This was a study that was done a few years from today, and technology wasn't advanced as it is today. Therefore, the number of occurrences of pipelines should have decreased by today due to the advancement of technology. The more interesting statistic by Fraser Institute is that 99% of the occurrences from the study above did not harm the environment. In rail transportation, trains have to idle and stop at certain times for various reasons throughout the route they are taking. However, pipeline transportation remains continuous and does not stop. Pipelines are more reliant on electricity instead of fossil fuels such as trains and trucks. To conclude, the prioritization of advantages and disadvantages is not possible because of the amount of advantages that the Dakota pipelines have to offer compared to the disadvantages are much greater. The prioritization of a disadvantage such as the interference with Native American land would be unjust because what about the rest of the land that is not Native American and the rest of the population that is not Native American? America is all about new opportunities and ensuring citizens' safety while doing so. The Dakota pipelines clearly represent a new opportunity that offers plenty of beneficial facts to prove that America is still innovating and improving for its economy and environment. Wait, that was 9 minutes? Damn. I'll have to see how.
Okay, so we're questioning You said that the pipeline offered about 8,000 temporary jobs, but only 50 jobs are permanent, correct? About
40.
Yeah, that's only 40 jobs out of a growing population of the United States, whereas a nuclear power plant, according to the State Department claim, it creates about 400 to 700 workers. So there are other alternatives for it. What do you have?
But isn't nuclear power plants more dangerous than pipelines?
It can be inside, yes, so they have to have good insurance about it, but
Yeah.
even the oil, if it actually gets out, it could be very harmful to other people too, like farmers, Native Americans, the land.
I think because the maintenance to do with pipelines, you don't really have to do much until there's a spill. You just need people to look over and monitor it, compared to nuclear plants where there could be a lot that could go wrong within any second, and there has to be someone there 24/7 every day.
Okay, and so when you made that comment about how Native American lands and they're not only, it's not only their land, it's also it's the government's land, it's not really their land, then why are there treaties that actually reserves their land just for them? And we could cross and go through it, but we cannot destroy their land. So I don't really understand how that's owned by the government when Native Americans were actually here first before people did.
Well, technically, the government still offers supplies to Native Americans. I had this one friend that was part Native American, and he had a pension every month that he gets from the government to help him out. So yeah, I mean, it's not like the government's just taking their land and leaving them to die. They're actually providing them with resources, and it's not we're taking their land just to destroy it. It's we're trying to put their land to purpose as well.
But to possibly destroy it.
Yeah.
Okay. So you made a comment about how oil is better. How is oil better than all these alternatives to fossil fuels?
Well, I mean, oil is what we started with. So obviously there's gonna be more cars that run on gas right now, and it could change in the future. But for right now, oil and gas is one of the leading industries. So.
Okay.
Yeah.
And you made a comment that only Native Americans were affected by this. It wasn't. There are also farmers up in Iowa who are also affected, who are also kind of sketchy about this pipeline, because if it did leak or the construction of it, it could bring damage to their land when they're trying to grow and produce.
Yeah.
So, is there anything about that at all about the farmers?
Well, I mean, I'm sure the government will compensate for whatever damage was done, because I mean, if you think about it, the government created that, and so there has to be some type of insurance. Technically not your fault, it's Tesla's fault.
It's
So,
Tesla's fault? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, well, that's it, my quick question. So, rebuttal time. Stop and reset. Okay, so what he said, he made very good, valid points about how the pipeline was a little bit beneficial and how it affects other people is very just unjust. The only concern I have is that these pipelines, as I stated before, they don't produce as much jobs, and with the growing economy, it's kind of hard to have, to build it, it creates a lot of jobs, but they're only temporarily. So what happens to all these people who are now jobless? There's only 50 people about who have these permanent jobs, where nuclear power plants and other alternatives can produce way more jobs and way more opportunities for these people. Though they can be risky, but so can pipelines under construction. When they started this pipeline and started going into the creation of it, they didn't include the tribe, which was a violation of their treaty, and that kind of really put it out there, why aren't you including us in this? If this happened and how they did not include them, the Missouri River is the Standing Rock's Sioux tribe's only water resource. So if any spill does happen, it will be a violation of the Clean Water Act and the National Environmental Policy Act, which they did violate during the creation of it because they just did the what's it called? It was the nationwide permit number 12, which explementing it from the environmental reviews required by the the Clean Water Act. So if there was a spill, it's actually going against an act, which is not very wise. And I don't know any more claims. So. This is also very, very unjust, just because it is violation of like their land. I don't know how you guys feel about that, but it goes against their land. A lot of these spills happen. There are many spills that already happened, and it's just putting more damage on them and more risk at them. There's already people who are trying to go into their land who are violating their land already, and the Army Corps is not even helping them with that. So there's just more and more violations to this people's land, which is not very humane, kind of. They try to go through their land to dig for gold. They're trying to go through the land just to make trails. They're disrupting their property. That's their private property. That's their sacred ground. That's their religious beliefs. That's a violation of the First and Fourth Amendment. Every time they go into the land or try to build even underneath their land. I know not everything is on their reserves, but it is still going through their water supply, which is part of their reserve. And I can understand why pipelines can be successful for the railing, but pipelines are controlled by electricity, so it's a lot of other things. So why not use electricity for using it for something better, as like windmills, solar power, nuclear energy, something more beneficial that produces more into the future of the United States than staying backwards, only going back to oil. We have enough oil that's already reserved. You can see them all out in the ocean picking up oil too. Why do we need to keep contaminating our land and their land just for oil, fossil fuels that are also damaging our environment? So that's me.
Okay, so you said like the violation, you're talking about the violation of the treaty with the Native American land, and that could be true as well, but I don't think that's like America's, like the government's purpose. Like they're not gonna come in there like build pipelines and then like scripted like, oh yeah, let's build this amount of oil like at this time and this amount to make this type of damage. Like, you know, accidents could happen, and like human creation is always going to be flawed because it's created by humans, and humans aren't perfect. But you said like there's other alternatives like solar energy and wind energy that could be used instead of oil. But currently today, like the oil industry is like one of the biggest industries, and unfortunately like America is not one of them. So that's why gas prices are really high currently, because we have to rely on other outside sources, and it's just more expensive compared to getting it like natively like inside in America. So I think that's why they're looking for more ways to get more oil in America, where it's easier to be sourced, to decrease the prices, and to like eliminate like the competition between like other countries in like the oil industry as well. But there could like oil, like I think oil will be like always there for us to use, because I mean, how many times do we use oil? Like we use oil for cooking, not only for gas, but cooking and other resources, like to like for fixing cars, and you might need oil for cars that use electricity or even solar energy. And yeah, all right. Yeah.
Good job.